Okay, I'm going to talk about the 7 chord finally. Now, what is the 7th chord? Oh, excuse me, 7 chord. I don't have to get these mixed up. 7 chord, just like every other chord, is a triad based off of a note in a scale, which is just the laid out notes of a key. Okay, so it's going to be 7, the 7th note in the scale. 7, you're going to jump to 2, because you skip 8. 7, 8 is 1. 7, 2, 4. 7, 2, 4. Those are the notes that make up the triad that constitutes a 7 chord. Now, it happens to be a diminished triad. Well, what is a diminished triad or chord? Well, remember the difference between a major and a minor? A minor is like a major, except you take the third of it, root 3, 5, you take the third, the one in the middle, and you just lower it a half step. So in the case of, let's say, E, here's an E major. The third happens to be here. Let's lower it a half step. Minor, major, minor, major, minor. Let's say make a minor chord. Now let's take a minor chord. Let's take B minor. Now how do you make it diminished? You find the 5 of it. It's already a minor chord, but take the 5th, root 3, 5. Take the 5th of it and lower that a half step. There's a perfect 5th right there. We're gonna make it diminished. There's your B diminished chord. One way of playing it, there are many. In root position, meaning the B is the low sounding note. To a C. That's a 7 to a 1. Now, it sounds kind of like a 5 to a 1, and they're in fact both in the same category, which is dominant chords. They're the only two in that category, the 5 chord and the 7 chord. Now, the 7 chord in popular modern music is almost never used. For a reason I'll go into right now. I'm going to introduce a new chord. 5, it's the 5 chord. That's not new. But we're going to make it a 7th chord. How do you make 7th chords? You create your basic triad, root 3, 5, but you add a 7, root 3, 5, 7. Root 3, 5, 7. Okay? You can do that with any chord, and you're going to end up with some kind of a 7th chord. Because there's going to be, and they're called 7th chords because they have that interval between the root of the chord, whatever it is, call it a 1, and the 7 up there. And that's a 7th, an interval of a 7th. It might be a minor 7th, it might be a major 7th, it might be a diminished 7th, whatever, but it's some kind of a 7th. Now, let's do that with the 5 chord. Just using the notes of the key. The notes are we already have our palette in front of us. We're not changing, we're in the key of C, let's say. We're just using those notes. But we're going to start on the G chord, which is the 5 chord of C. We've already got, 5, 7, 2, but we're going to add a 5, 7, 2, 4. And now that's going to happen to be an F note. G, B, D, F. That's a 5, 7 chord. There you go. It's called a dominant 7th. Now here's why we almost never play 7 chord. Not that one, but the 7 chord based off of the 7 note. This one, 7 diminished. Because, speaking of shared notes between chords, well, what's a 7 made of? A 7 chord? 7, 2, 4. What's a 5, 7 chord made of? 5, 7, 2, 4. So the whole 7 chord is included in the 5 when you add a 7th. Okay? It's included in the G7 chord. The B diminished, all 3 notes of it are inside this one, but you also have the added power of the 5. Which is powerful in a way that 7 is not powerful. The 7 is very dependent. It's kind of needy. It really wants to go to the 1, right? But it doesn't have a lot of power to stand on its own. Like I said, it's not the one you just like strum out and let it ring or anything, you know. But listen to this. Different, right? But it includes everything, but it's more. So 5/7 is actually very common. The 7 chord is not common at all, and that's why.